Millionaire alien mom dropped her plate after seeing her paralyzed daughter walk. HFY sci-fi story. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. What would you do if you witnessed a miracle, a moment that could change someone's life forever? Well, today's story is about a human who did something extraordinary, and the alien world around him could never be the same. Let's find out. Our story begins on a remote planet far from Earth, one where humans had been sent to conduct research for the Galactic Council. The air was thin, the sun beat down relentlessly, and the landscape was barren, stretching out in all directions as if it were an endless desert. It was here, in the heart of the desert, that Alex Carter, a humble human engineer, found himself stationed. Alex was no hero, not by any stretch of the imagination. He was simply a man who did his job and did it well. His skills in mechanical engineering had earned him a place on this off-world project, where his task was to maintain the equipment that powered the research stations scattered across the desolate planet. But little did Alex know, the simple life he had built on this harsh world was about to be shattered. One day, as he was inspecting the power grid outside the station, he noticed something unusual, a figure standing alone in the distance. A shimmering silhouette, delicate yet strong, moving with slow, measured steps. As the figure came closer, Alex's eyes widened. It was an alien woman. Her skin was a deep violet, glowing softly under the harsh sun. Her movements were graceful but burdened with a sadness he could sense from a distance. This was Zara, a member of the Zovian royal family. She had arrived on this planet under mysterious circumstances, and no one had been able to explain how she had ended up so far from her home planet. Zara's tragic backstory was known to few. She had been injured in a political assassination attempt and, as a result, had been paralyzed from the waist down. Her people, the Zovians, were a proud species with advanced technology, yet they had been unable to offer her a cure. Alex, who had no interest in politics, only saw a woman in need of help. His first instinct was to approach her. As he walked toward her, he could see the pain in her eyes. She looked at him with an expression that was a mixture of skepticism and disdain. Her royal status had conditioned her to believe that humans were beneath her, unworthy of her time or sympathy. "What do you want, human?" Zara asked, her voice as cold as the wind blowing across the barren landscape. Alex paused, taken aback by the sharpness in her tone, but he quickly regained his composure. "I was just coming to check on the equipment. Is everything okay?" Zara's gaze softened for a moment, but she quickly masked it, turning her eyes to the horizon as if trying to ignore him. "I don't need your help. I'm not some charity case," she said, her words sharp as a blade. But Alex wasn't about to walk away. He noticed her wheelchair, its wheels caked in dust and dirt. He could see she was struggling to move it, her strength fading with every attempt. "Look, I'm not here to judge you, but it's clear you need help. If you don't mind, I can fix that chair for you," he offered, his voice steady but kind. Zara turned her head to look at him, her violet eyes narrowing in disbelief. "Why would you help me? I'm nothing to you." Alex's response was simple. "Because everyone deserves help when they need it." Zara said nothing more, but she watched as Alex knelt down beside her wheelchair, inspecting the damaged wheels. Her expression softened ever so slightly, though she didn't admit it. The next few hours passed in a tense silence. Alex worked quickly, his hands moving with precision as he repaired the broken parts of Zara's chair. He had no ulterior motives, no desire for recognition. He just wanted to do the right thing. When he finished, he looked up at Zara. "There you go. It's not perfect, but it should work now." Zara tested the chair, rolling it forward with ease. She looked at Alex, still unsure of his motives, but something had changed. The skepticism in her eyes was fading, replaced by a faint spark of curiosity. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice no longer cold. But Alex just smiled and shook his head. "You don't need to thank me. It's just what anyone would do." Zara didn't respond. She simply sat there for a moment, taking in the gesture of kindness she had just received. She had expected to be left alone, dismissed as a broken royal with no place in the universe. But this human, this simple engineer, had shown her something she had long forgotten: compassion. For the first time since the accident, Zara felt a glimmer of hope. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would change both their lives forever. As the days passed, Alex found himself drawn more and more to Zara. He continued his work maintaining the research station's equipment, but something had changed. The simple act of helping Zara had opened a door, one that revealed the deeper layers of his own character, layers he hadn't even known existed. Zara, on the other hand, was no longer the cold, distant royal she had once been. There was a vulnerability in her now, something she had kept hidden beneath her proud exterior. Alex noticed it the first time they spoke again after his repair of her chair. It was subtle, just a hint of gratitude in her voice that she quickly masked with her usual indifference. But it was enough to make Alex want to try even harder. Zara had become more than just a distant figure in the desert. She was a person, someone who had suffered far more than anyone could imagine, someone who needed help. As he continued his work on the station, Alex found excuses to speak with her, to check on her progress. At first, she had resisted, barely acknowledging him when he approached, but over time, she began to soften. "I've been thinking," Zara said one evening, her voice quieter than usual. "I never thought someone like you would care enough to help me." Alex was adjusting a control panel near the living quarters when he heard her voice. He turned, surprised to see her standing by the door to the station's common room. Zara's violet eyes met his, the coldness gone, replaced by something closer to curiosity. "Why?" she asked again. Alex wiped his hands on his work overalls and walked over to her. "I just did what anyone would do," he replied simply. "You don't have to explain it. It's just who I am." Zara nodded, but the look in her eyes told him she didn't completely understand. She had spent so much of her life in a world where power and status dictated everything that she couldn't quite grasp the concept of unconditional kindness. Over the following days, Zara's attitude shifted. She allowed Alex to help her more often, even requesting his assistance with tasks that once seemed beneath her. It wasn't easy for her to admit, but the pain of her injury, the helplessness that came with it, was starting to take its toll. She wasn't used to needing anyone, let alone a human. One evening, Zara asked Alex to meet her in the common room after his shift. When he arrived, she was sitting at the table, her back straight, but there was a noticeable tension in her posture. "I need to ask you something," she said, her voice quieter than usual. Alex sat down across from her, sensing the seriousness of the moment. "What's on your mind? How do you keep going?" she asked. "How do you stay so human when the world seems so cold and unforgiving?" Alex leaned back in his chair, taking a moment to think. He had never really stopped to question his own actions. Helping people was just what he did. But he realized that for Zara, this was a completely foreign concept. "I guess I just do what I can," he said softly. "There's always something to fight for, even when things seem hopeless." Zara looked down at her hands, a pained expression on her face. "I don't know if I can keep fighting," she admitted. "I don't know if I can keep pretending that everything is okay." Alex was quiet for a moment. He had never seen Zara this vulnerable before. It made him wonder just how much she had been hiding behind her regal facade. Slowly, he reached across the table and placed a hand on hers, offering what comfort he could. "You don't have to pretend with me," he said quietly. "I'm here for you." Zara met his gaze, her violet eyes filled with something Alex couldn't quite name. Relief, perhaps. Or maybe hope. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was someone in this universe who cared. The days continued to pass, and as the bond between Alex and Zara grew stronger, something unexpected happened. Zara began to walk again. It wasn't a miraculous recovery, no sudden cure for her paralysis. But with Alex's help, and the modified exoskeleton he had built for her, Zara began to regain some mobility. At first, it was just a few steps, but those steps meant more to her than anything she had ever achieved before. The exoskeleton, which Alex had painstakingly adapted to her unique physiology, had given her a new sense of freedom, something she had thought lost forever. One afternoon, as Alex watched Zara take her first real steps without the aid of her chair, something shifted in the air. There was a change in her demeanor, a quiet but powerful shift in the way she held herself. She turned to Alex, her eyes shining with emotion. but she said nothing at first. Instead, she reached out and took his hand. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice full of raw emotion. Alex smiled softly, but there was a sense of disbelief in his heart. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected to become this important to someone, let alone a Zovian royal. But as he looked at Zara, standing tall and proud once again, he realized something profound. This was more than just a simple act of kindness. It was a change in both their lives, a shared journey of healing and redemption. And as he stood beside her, watching the desert sun set on a world that had once seemed so cold, Alex knew that no matter what happened next, he had made a difference in her life. And that was enough. As the weeks passed, Alex and Zara's bond only grew stronger. Zara, once a symbol of power and pride, had become something more: human, vulnerable, and open to change. The more time they spent together, the more Zara opened up, sharing stories of her home planet, the Zovian Empire, and the complicated political life she had been forced to leave behind. Alex listened intently, but as much as Zara revealed, there was still a part of her that remained locked away, a wall she kept firmly in place. He understood that, though. It wasn't easy to open up, especially when you had spent your entire life hiding your true feelings behind a mask of royal dignity. One evening, as they sat together watching the twin suns set over the barren landscape, Zara broke the silence. "Alex," she began, her voice soft and hesitant, "you've done more for me than anyone ever has. But there's something I need to ask you." Alex looked at her, surprised by the change in her tone. Zara rarely spoke with such vulnerability. "What is it?" he asked, leaning in slightly, sensing the gravity of the moment. Zara paused for a long moment, as though choosing her words carefully. "I don't know if I can stay here forever," she said, her eyes turning toward the horizon. "I've been running from my past, from the responsibilities of being a royal, but it's catching up with me." Alex's heart sank a little. He knew that Zara's escape wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. But hearing her admit it made the weight of her struggle feel even more real. "Zara, you don't have to face it alone," Alex said, his voice steady but full of empathy. "Whatever it is, I'll help you through it." Zara looked back at him, her violet eyes searching his face, as if weighing his words. "You've already done so much," she whispered. "You don't owe me anything more." Alex shook his head. "I'm not doing this because I feel obligated," he said firmly. "I'm doing this because I care. And I believe in you." For the first time in a long time, Zara smiled, a small but genuine smile that reached her eyes. But then, as quickly as it appeared, the smile faded, replaced by a look of uncertainty. "I don't know what to do," she admitted. "I can't go back to Zovia, not now. But I also can't stay here forever, living in hiding." Alex thought for a moment. He knew the pain of being trapped in a situation you couldn't control, of being forced to make impossible decisions. He had been there himself, in his own way. "What if you didn't have to go back to Zovia?" he asked, the idea forming in his mind. "What if there was a way for you to carve out a new path for yourself, one where you could be free from the expectations of your people?" Zara turned to him, her eyes wide with curiosity. "What are you saying?" she asked, leaning in slightly. "Maybe we can find a place for you," Alex said, his mind racing. "A place where you can start over, without the pressure of your royal title or the weight of your family's expectations. There are worlds out there, places where you could be just Zara, not the princess, not the survivor. Just you." Zara's expression softened, her eyes glistening with a mixture of hope and fear. "Is that even possible?" she asked quietly. Alex smiled gently. "I don't know, but I'm willing to help you find out." It was a bold idea, one that came with its own set of risks. They both knew that. But in that moment, it didn't seem like a dream anymore. It seemed like something real, something worth fighting for. Over the next few days, Alex worked tirelessly to gather information, reaching out to old contacts and gathering the necessary resources to help Zara escape her past. They would need a ship, new identities, and most importantly, a plan that would keep them both safe. Zara, for her part, helped with the preparations as much as she could, though her efforts were mostly limited to researching possible safe havens across the galaxy. The more they worked together, the more Alex could see how far Zara had come. The woman who had once been too proud to ask for help was now willing to take the biggest risk of her life, freedom. One evening, as the preparations were nearly complete, Zara came to Alex with a final question. "What if this doesn't work?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Alex looked at her, his expression unwavering. "Then we try again," he said. "We keep moving forward, because that's all we can do. We don't give up, no matter what happens." Zara smiled softly, her confidence restored, at least for the moment. "Thank you, Alex," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You've given me a chance I never thought I'd have." Alex nodded, his heart full of determination. "This is just the beginning, Zara. We're in this together, all the way." As they stood there, side by side, ready to embark on a new journey, they both knew that their lives were about to change forever. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges and dangers, but for the first time, they were ready to face it head-on, together. As the days passed, Alex and Zara continued preparing for their escape, each day bringing them closer to a new life, but also raising new questions about the future. Zara had never been one to rely on others, let alone trust a human, but Alex had changed that. The more they worked together, the more she realized just how much he cared, not just for her safety, but for her as a person. The trust that had slowly built between them was now undeniable, and she couldn't help but feel a growing sense of hope. It was strange, this feeling. She had been so used to her royal life, where everything was planned and controlled, but now, the future seemed open, uncertain, and yet full of possibilities. As Alex worked tirelessly to arrange their new identities and secure transportation off-world, Zara found herself reflecting on her past, on the life she had left behind. The more she thought about her time in the Zovian Empire, the more she realized how much it had shaped her into who she was, for better or worse. She had always been a product of her upbringing, strong, capable, and trained to lead. But she had never been given the freedom to choose for herself, to live a life not defined by her family's expectations. Now, for the first time, she could see that possibility. The idea of being someone other than the Princess of Zovia, of being just Zara, was both terrifying and exhilarating. As the days grew closer to their departure, Alex and Zara had formed a routine. In the mornings, Alex would work on the final preparations for their escape, while Zara would focus on her physical therapy, determined to gain as much mobility as possible. With each passing day, her progress was noticeable. She could stand on her own for longer periods of time, and her steps were becoming more steady. It was small progress, but it was progress, and for Zara, it felt like a victory. One evening, after a long day of work, Alex and Zara sat together in the station's common room, sipping on the last of the station's supplies. Zara looked at Alex, her expression more serious than usual. "Do you ever wonder if we're making the right choice?" she asked, her voice soft, yet filled with uncertainty. Alex looked at her, surprised by the question. "Of course I do," he said, his voice steady, but with a hint of honesty. "It's a big decision, and nothing about it is easy. But I know this. What we're doing is giving you a chance at something different, something better." Zara nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on the table in front of her. "I've spent my entire life being told what to do, who to be," she said, her voice quiet but filled with emotion. "And now, for the first time, I get to choose. It's both terrifying and freeing." Alex smiled at her, his heart swelling with a mix of pride and hope. "You've always had the strength to choose, Zara," he said gently. "You just needed the freedom to see it." Zara looked up at him, her violet eyes searching his face. "What if I can't do it? What if I'm not strong enough?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Alex reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "You are stronger than you think," he said firmly. "I've seen it in the way you've faced every challenge, in the way you've fought to regain control of your own life. You are stronger than any title, any expectation. And no matter what happens, I'll be right here, with you." For the first time in weeks, Zara allowed herself to believe his words. She squeezed his hand, her fear slowly starting to fade, replaced by a growing sense of determination. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice full of gratitude. The next day, they received the final confirmation. The ship was ready, the identities were secured, and everything was in place for their escape. The plan was simple: leave under the cover of night, make their way to the ship, and head to the outer rim, where they could start over. But even with everything in place, the reality of what they were about to do settled in. It wasn't just the escape that was daunting. It was the uncertainty of the future. What if they couldn't outrun the past? What if Zovia's reach was longer than they thought? But Alex and Zara had made their decision. They were in this together, and they would face whatever came next side by side. That night, as the shadows grew long and the station began to quiet down, they made their move. With the stars shining brightly above them, Alex and Zara stepped into the unknown, leaving behind a life of royalty and expectations for the chance at something new. The future was uncertain, but in that moment, it didn't matter. All that mattered was that they had each other, and for the first time in a long time, Zara felt like she was truly free. As Alex and Zara made their way through the dark corridors of the station, their hearts were racing. The plan was simple, but the weight of the decision they had made was heavy on their shoulders. They had chosen freedom, a fresh start, but they knew that this escape came with its own risks. Zara walked with a steady pace, her modified exoskeleton helping her move with greater ease than ever before. It was still a struggle for her to walk for long periods, but the pain was more manageable now. Alex was right beside her, his eyes scanning the darkened hallways for any signs of movement. They had to be careful. The Zovian Empire was vast, and there was no guarantee that Zara's disappearance would go unnoticed. They had to leave quickly before anyone could catch wind of their plan. Zara's thoughts were clouded with uncertainty as she walked beside Alex. Despite her determination, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was wrong. She had spent so many years running from her responsibilities, but this time, it felt different. This time, it wasn't just about her. This time, Alex was involved, and she couldn't help but worry about his safety. "Alex," she whispered, her voice laced with concern, "what if they find us? What if we're not fast enough?" Alex glanced at her, his face lit by the faint glow of the emergency lights overhead. "We'll be fine," he said, his voice steady but with a hint of reassurance. "I've got everything covered. We just have to stick to the plan." Zara nodded, trying to push her doubts aside, but it was hard. She wasn't used to relying on anyone, and now, here she was, trusting a human to help her escape her past. The weight of her royal blood, her legacy, had always been a burden, but now it felt like a distant memory. "I never thought it would be like this," Zara muttered, more to herself than to Alex. "I always thought I'd return to Zovia, face my people, and take back what was mine." Alex shook his head. "You don't have to do that, Zara," he said. "You don't have to be the princess. You can be who you want to be." Zara stopped for a moment, her eyes fixed on the floor, her hand gripping the armrest of her exoskeleton. "But that's the problem," she said softly. "I don't know who I am without it. I've spent my whole life being someone else. Being the princess, being the one who always has to be strong. And now, I don't know what to do with myself." Alex stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to have all the answers right now," he said. "The important thing is that you're choosing your path. You're taking control of your life." Zara looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. "But what if I fail?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex smiled softly. "Then we try again," he said. "We don't give up. We keep moving forward." Zara felt a flicker of warmth in her chest. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, she could find a new purpose, a new life. She turned back to Alex, her face softening. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice filled with gratitude. Alex nodded, and together, they continued down the corridor, moving toward the ship that would take them away from everything they had known. As they reached the docking bay, the ship they would board was waiting for them, its sleek design gleaming under the station's lights. It looked like a symbol of hope, a new beginning. Alex took one last look at Zara, his heart full of determination. "Ready?" he asked. Zara looked at the ship, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never been more ready for anything in her life. "Let's go," she said, her voice steady, her resolve solid. Together, they boarded the ship, and as the doors closed behind them, they left the station and the life they had known behind. The stars stretched out before them, an endless expanse of possibility, and for the first time, Zara felt free. As the ship ascended into the night sky, she knew there was still a long journey ahead, but she also knew that with Alex by her side, anything was possible. As the ship ascended, the distant glow of the research station faded away, swallowed by the vastness of space. Zara sat in the cockpit beside Alex, her hands clenched tightly around the armrest. The reality of their escape was beginning to settle in. This wasn't just a journey to a new planet. It was the start of an entirely new life. The ship's engines hummed softly, the steady sound providing a strange comfort in the silence that hung between them. They had left everything behind. Zovia, her royal past, and the life she had once known. Zara had always felt like she was meant for something bigger, but now, as the stars stretched out before her, she realized that her life was entirely in her own hands. She turned to Alex, her face a mix of apprehension and excitement. "Where do we go from here?" she asked, her voice steady but filled with curiosity. Alex glanced over at her, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Anywhere you want," he said. "This is your chance, Zara, to decide who you want to be, without anyone telling you what to do." Zara looked out the window, her gaze following the stars that seemed to stretch out infinitely in every direction. "I've never had a choice before," she admitted quietly. "Everything was always planned for me. My family, my people, they all had a vision of what I should be. I never got to make my own decisions." Alex nodded, understanding more than she realized. "That's the beauty of it," he said. "Now, you can choose your own path. You don't have to be anyone else but yourself." Zara felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had never imagined that she would be sitting here, with a human, in a spaceship heading towards an unknown future. She had always been told that she was destined for greatness, but now, she realized that greatness meant freedom. Freedom to live her life on her own terms. "But what if I don't know who I am without the title?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if I fail?" Alex's smile softened, his eyes warm with reassurance. "You won't fail, Zara," he said. "You've already taken the hardest step. You've chosen freedom. The rest will come with time. Just take it one step at a time." Zara looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had never imagined that someone, especially a human, would believe in her this way. For so long, she had been a princess, a symbol of power and authority. But now, she was just Zara, a woman with a chance to start over, to rebuild her life from the ground up. The ship continued its journey, gliding smoothly through the vastness of space. As they traveled, Zara found herself growing more and more comfortable in the silence, the steady rhythm of the ship lulling her into a sense of calm. There was still so much uncertainty ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. The stars outside were beautiful, but it was the promise of the future that truly captivated her. A future where she could finally be herself, where her past didn't define her every move. "Thank you, Alex," Zara said, her voice full of emotion. "For everything. For believing in me." Alex turned to her, his smile wide. "I didn't do anything," he said. "You're the one who made the choice. You're the one who decided to take control of your life. I'm just here to help however I can." Zara smiled, feeling the weight of his words settle into her heart. She had always felt like an outsider, even among her own people. But now, for the first time, she felt like she belonged, not because of her title, but because of who she was. The rest of the journey was quiet, but not uncomfortable. Zara spent her time reflecting on what lay ahead. They would stop at a nearby spaceport first, a small outpost on the edge of the galaxy, where they could lay low and make further plans. It was far from Zovia, and far from the life that had been forced upon her, but it was a beginning. And in this moment, that was all that mattered. As the ship glided through space, Zara knew that she was no longer the woman who had left her home planet. She was something new, something that was just beginning to emerge. She didn't know exactly where this journey would take her, but she knew one thing for sure: she was finally free. And with Alex by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. As the ship descended toward the small spaceport on the outskirts of the galaxy, Zara couldn't help but feel a wave of nervous excitement wash over her. It was the first stop on their journey to an unknown future, a future she had chosen for herself. The hum of the ship's engines reverberated softly in the background, providing a calming rhythm, but the uncertainty ahead still lingered in the air. Beside her, Alex was focused on the navigation console, ensuring that their landing would go smoothly. It was strange, she thought, how much she had come to rely on him in such a short time. Zara had always prided herself on her independence, but now, for the first time in her life, she felt like she was part of something bigger than herself. "We'll be landing in a few minutes," Alex said, glancing over at her with a reassuring smile. "Get ready. This is where things start to get interesting." Zara nodded, trying to calm the fluttering feeling in her chest. They had planned everything down to the smallest detail. Lay low at the spaceport, gather supplies, and then make their way to a more remote planet, far away from the reach of Zovia's spies. It was a simple plan, but one that carried its own risks. She had no illusions that their past would simply fade away. No matter how far they traveled, Zara knew that someone would eventually be looking for her. "Do you think we'll be safe here?" Zara asked, her voice quiet but tinged with uncertainty. Alex looked at her, his expression serious but hopeful. "We've got a few days before anyone notices we're gone. We'll use that time wisely. If we keep our heads down, we should be okay." Zara couldn't help but appreciate the calm confidence in his voice. In the days since they had left the research station, Alex had become her anchor, the one constant in a world that had shifted beneath her feet. It was a strange feeling, knowing that the one person she had come to rely on the most was someone who, just a few weeks ago, had been a stranger. The ship finally touched down with a soft thud, the landing gear locking into place. Zara's heart raced as the ship's hatch opened, revealing the dusty expanse of the spaceport. The atmosphere was thin but breathable, and the low hum of activity around the small outpost indicated that it was a hub for various travelers, merchants, and smugglers. Alex gestured for Zara to follow him as they made their way down the ship's ramp. "Stay close," he murmured, his eyes scanning the area as they stepped out onto the tarmac. Zara nodded, her hand instinctively reaching for the weapon Alex had insisted she carry. It felt strange, but necessary. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of change, and now, in this new world, Zara realized that she wasn't just a princess or a royal heir, she was a survivor. As they made their way through the spaceport, Zara couldn't help but feel the weight of the life she had left behind. The Zovian Empire, her family, her status, all of it was now a distant memory. But even as she walked away from that life, she knew that it wasn't just about running away. It was about creating something new, something that was entirely hers. They reached a small cantina at the edge of the spaceport, where Alex had arranged to meet a contact who could help them with the next stage of their journey. The place was dimly lit, filled with a mix of alien species and travelers. Zara felt out of place, the eyes of the other patrons lingering on her as she walked in. She had never been in a place like this before, and she couldn't help but feel the stark contrast between the opulence of her past and the gritty, raw reality of her present. Alex led her to a corner table, where a tall, hooded figure was waiting. "This is Ryan," Alex said, introducing the contact with a nod. "He's our ticket to the next planet. He's got connections, and he's the one who can get us out of here unnoticed." Zara studied Ryan carefully, her instincts on high alert. She had been trained to assess people quickly, and something about Ryan made her wary. But Alex trusted him, and that was enough for now. "You're the ones who need to disappear?" Ryan's voice was low and gravelly, his eyes gleaming from beneath the hood. "I can get you to where you need to go, but it's going to cost you. Nothing in this business is free." Alex nodded, his expression unreadable. "We understand. What's the price?" Ryan smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "A favor. When the time comes, you'll owe me one. And don't even think about backing out." Zara felt a surge of tension at the unspoken threat, but she kept her composure. This was the reality now. Nothing came easy, and nothing was without a price. She looked at Alex, who gave her a subtle nod, signaling that they had no choice but to agree. "Deal," Alex said, extending his hand to seal the agreement. Ryan shook it firmly, his grip cold and unyielding. "Good," he said, standing up to leave. "I'll arrange for your transport. Be ready. The clock is ticking." As Ryan disappeared into the crowd, Zara felt a mixture of relief and dread. The next phase of their journey was about to begin, and she knew that the challenges they would face would only get harder. But as she looked at Alex, she realized something. No matter what happened, they were in this together. And for the first time, that was enough. The next few days passed in a blur of activity as Zara and Alex prepared for the next phase of their journey. They kept their heads down, making sure not to draw attention, while Ryan made arrangements for their departure. Despite the calm exterior, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every time she stepped outside, her eyes would scan the crowds, her senses on high alert. The spaceport was bustling, full of travelers, merchants, and smugglers. But Zara couldn't shake the nagging feeling that someone knew they were here. Alex, ever the calm one, reassured her that they were fine, that they just needed to stick to the plan and wait for the right moment to leave. But Zara knew better than to ignore her instincts. She had been trained to spot danger, to sense when something wasn't right, and right now, everything felt like it was teetering on the edge. One evening, as they sat in their small, rented room at a nondescript hotel on the edge of the spaceport, Zara couldn't hold her thoughts back any longer. "Alex, do you ever feel like we're just waiting for something to go wrong?" she asked, her voice quiet but heavy with worry. Alex looked up from the data pad in his hands, his expression thoughtful. "I get where you're coming from," he said, setting the pad down and giving her his full attention. "But we can't keep looking over our shoulders forever. We have to trust that we've done everything we can to cover our tracks." Zara nodded, but the unease still gnawed at her. "I know," she said, "but every time I close my eyes, I see Zovia's soldiers coming for me. I hear their voices, feel their eyes on me." Alex reached across the table and took her hand, his grip firm but comforting. "Zara, they won't find us. We've covered our tracks, and Ryan has connections. We're going to get out of here, and no one is going to stop us." His words were meant to reassure her, but Zara couldn't shake the weight of the past, the sense that she was always one step away from being caught, from being pulled back into the life she had tried to escape. But she also knew that Alex was right. They had planned for this, and they had to trust the plan. "I know," Zara said, taking a deep breath. I just need to believe it." The next morning, everything changed. They were woken early by a sharp knock at the door. Alex immediately stood, his senses on high alert. "Stay here," he whispered to Zara as he moved toward the door. Zara nodded, her heart racing as she watched Alex cautiously open it. Standing in the doorway was Ryan, his face tense and his eyes darting nervously around the room. "We need to go now," Ryan said, his voice low and urgent. Zara's stomach dropped. She could feel the tension in the air, thick and oppressive. "What's going on?" Alex asked, stepping aside to let Ryan in. "Is something wrong?" Ryan didn't answer immediately. He glanced out the window, his expression darkening as he closed the door behind him. "They know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Someone tipped them off. Zovia's soldiers are already looking for you. We need to move, and we need to move fast." Zara's heart skipped a beat. Her worst fear had come true. "How?" she asked, her voice trembling. "How could they know?" Ryan ran a hand through his short-cropped hair, looking frustrated. "I don't know, but we don't have time to figure it out. The station's under lockdown. They'll be here in less than an hour." Alex's face hardened, his eyes narrowing. "We have to go, now," he said, grabbing Zara's arm and leading her to the door. Zara's mind raced, but she knew there was no time to argue. They had no choice but to trust Ryan, even if she wasn't sure she could. They made their way to the hangar in silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on them with each step. Zara felt like the walls were closing in. She had thought they were safe, that they had a plan, but now, it all seemed to be falling apart. As they reached the hangar, Zara saw the ship waiting for them. It was sleek and compact, just as Ryan had promised, but it looked out of place, too small for the trouble they were about to face. "Get in," Ryan ordered, his voice urgent as he pushed them toward the hatch. "I'll handle the rest." Without another word, Alex and Zara climbed into the ship. As the hatch closed behind them, Zara looked out the small window. The spaceport was a flurry of activity, the sounds of alarms echoing in the distance. She knew it was only a matter of time before Zovia's soldiers arrived, but they were already in motion, and that was all that mattered. The ship's engines roared to life, and with a violent lurch, they shot into the sky. Zara's heart pounded in her chest, but there was no turning back now. As the ship broke through the atmosphere, she looked at Alex, who gave her a determined nod. They had made it out, but the road ahead was uncertain. One thing was clear: no matter what happened next, they were in this together, and they would face whatever came their way as one. The ship soared through the vastness of space, leaving the spaceport and the threat of Zovia's soldiers behind. Zara sat silently, her eyes fixed on the stars outside the window, the vastness of the universe stretching out before her. It was hard to believe that just days ago, she had been a prisoner in her own life, trapped by her royal duties and expectations. Now, she was free. Free to choose her own path. Free to decide who she wanted to be. But with that freedom came the weight of uncertainty. They were not out of danger yet. The Zovian Empire was vast, and even though they had escaped the spaceport, Zara knew that someone would be looking for her. She had left behind not just a family, but a legacy, one that would not be easily erased. "We're safe for now," Alex said, his voice calm but with a hint of exhaustion. Zara looked over at him, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the ship's console. He had been her constant in all of this, the one person she could rely on, the one person who had never treated her like a princess or a symbol of power. He had treated her like a person, someone with her own hopes, fears, and dreams. "For now," Zara replied, her voice quiet but steady. "But what happens next? Where do we go from here?" Alex leaned back in his seat, staring out into the black expanse of space. "We keep moving forward," he said simply. "We find a place where we can start over, where no one knows who you are. A place where you can be yourself, without the weight of your past holding you back." Zara felt a lump form in her throat as she processed his words. It sounded so simple, but she knew it wouldn't be. Starting over wasn't easy. She had spent her entire life being someone else, someone her people wanted her to be, someone her family demanded she be. Now, for the first time, she could be who she wanted to be. But the road ahead was filled with uncertainty. "Do you think we can really do it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you think we can really start over?" Alex turned to her, his eyes meeting hers, full of determination and hope. "I think we can," he said, his voice unwavering. "You've already made the hardest choice. You've already taken control of your life. The rest is just a matter of finding the right place, the right people, and building something new." Zara nodded slowly, feeling a small flicker of hope ignite in her chest. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a new life, a life where she could truly be herself. As the ship continued its journey through the stars, Zara's thoughts turned to the future. She had no idea where this journey would take her, but she knew one thing for sure: she was not alone. She had Alex by her side, and that made all the difference. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, no matter how difficult. And maybe, just maybe, they would find the peace and freedom they both so desperately needed. Hours passed, and the ship steadily made its way toward the outer rim of the galaxy, the only place where they might find refuge from the reach of the Zovian Empire. The stars outside flickered like distant beacons, guiding them toward an unknown future. Zara's eyes grew heavy as the exhaustion of the past few days finally caught up with her. She leaned back in her seat, closing her eyes for a moment, letting the soft hum of the ship lull her into a rare moment of peace. In that moment, Zara realized something profound. The past was behind her, and the future, though uncertain, was full of possibility. She didn't know what would come next, but she knew she would face it with Alex by her side. And that, more than anything, gave her the strength to keep moving forward. "We're going to make it," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines. And for the first time in a long time, Zara truly believed it.